Looking for an approval of the existing language, not including the appendix, because that's going to change as time goes on. We don't need to wait for all of the pieces to get put in there.
So the question is, are you comfortable with the language of the policy?
The only thing that's not is naming health safety officer. So the only note I put on there was, I think it makes sense at this point, and we could see how it goes and we can adjust it, is the senior custodian. We had talked about that as one of the roles when it went from custodian to senior custodian. It seems like the responsible person, which is all your department heads in all the various buildings, are taking on the ownership of a lot of the in-house stuff. This is just that one piece of ensuring that the training is done.
Right.
I mean, all your MS, I don't know how that works, because she already has an 8-hour day that's full.
I don't,
Yeah.
I don't, this is more of an HR role than it is like a
On the ground.
application type role, right? And so the senior custodian's been extremely informative in developing the SDS program. So this is somebody to oversee, again, just the compliance with the policy and ensure the training's happening. It's a higher level function that sort of is more of an umbrella, as opposed to somebody who's really like on the ground, maybe interacting with the products or specific employees around how the products may or may not be appropriate for their workspace. And so I think these two positions talk to each other and work well together, but I don't think it's the same position. The senior custodian doesn't have access to training records and things of that nature. So I agree, we have not solidified that as a separate job description and maybe duties, but I think in the meantime, I would just offer to fulfill that role until we can flush that out differently, and then you can assign it to whomever is appropriate to assign it to, because I do have access to those records and things of that nature.
Would the language health safety officer or designee assist or be necessary with that, or is it satisfactory just that you in your capacity can absorb that
I think
on an interim?
as long as you all identify who's making the designation, it can be a designee. I think it should live with the three of you.
So if you're offering, and I get your take on that it's more of an HR oversight and not a physically running the trainings. That'll be department heads ensuring all of that's done.
Right.
So in that aspect, I think just naming who the health safety officer is, and if you're willing to take that oversight on in the interim until we can finalize who that would be going forward. I think we just name early on the first time health safety officer is mentioned in the document, and name you as that person.
Okay.
We can always bring it back and adjust it.
Sure.
Yeah.
6 months from now, if we find out there's a better
Just a good
solution. Yeah. I don't want to put it out there without naming somebody.
Right.
Even though internally we may know that it's going to be you overseeing it, if it's not in the document, it doesn't exist.
Right. I think designee, when you're talking about that, probably maybe flip it. It's the health safety officer is designated by the select board, and leave it that way, and then we can designate it separately. And that can abstract the two if we want, because it's a role rather than, or a responsibility rather than a person.
Right.
Oh, so you want to leave?
Motion?
Make a motion to adopt the Hazard Communication Plan Policy HSP-010 as amended with an effective date of July 10th, 2023.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you for working on that. That was quite a bit.
Yeah, and thank you to all the staff who have been working on this. It's quite the undertaking.
And an ever-living task.
You've got 2 minutes.
Meeting minutes. Meeting minutes of June 26, 2023 and June 28th, 2023.
Go back here.
Any discussion?
No, you want to do them both together?
Sure.
All right, make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from Monday, June 26, 2023, and Wednesday, June 28th, 2023, as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
FY 24 Select Board reorg. Feel like deja vu is coming. All I would say is whatever we decide, if it's a change, suggest we implement it after the meeting is over tonight,
Sure.
just for convenience. And
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I have no concerns if you want to continue in your role as chair.
I have no issues if that's a motion. I have no preference either way. I can do it if you'd like.
I have no objection to that. The one thing that I would like to mention with the assignments as written,
The liaisons?
what's that?
The liaisons?
The liaisons is, while I don't think there would be a direct conflict, so as to not even allow for an appearance of a conflict, I would like to be removed as, if I were to take Selectman Bembury's roles, to be removed from the library trustee, as I have a family member that serves on the trustee.
I get that. I don't have a problem taking that one if you need to get
Would
rid
you
of
like
one.
to, I would gladly do a one-for-one swap if you'd like to take something off your, or you just want to bear the extra burden.
You know what, to be honest, if you look at mine, I really only have 3 of them that are active. I mean, town moderator, town clerk, and personnel. There's not a ton there, so there's a lot of dormant activity. I don't mind just taking it. If it becomes too much or things start to get active, I don't mind asking.
Okay.
So we can adjust that if you want and put that one on mine.
Okay.
Thank you.
No concerns. I'll just say what I said last year, I think, to my fellow members then, which was just if, things get busy and I need a hand, I'll let you guys know.
Yep.
And, might need to divvy up some stuff as we go. But I don't mind serving as chair again if that's what you
I'm good with it.
wish. Okay. You want to make a motion?
Make a motion to appoint Jake Smith as the chair for the following year, effective July 10th, 2023.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then liaisons as amended, you'll distribute that.
Yes.
All right, I'll squeeze the last one in here and then we'll start the joint meeting. Bear with me, thank you. Surplus equipment request, police, refrigerator, first read. Any questions or concerns?
No concerns.
Okay, we'll carry for next meeting. With that, I'll call the joint meeting with the Senior Housing Committee to order at 6:47 PM. Discussion of the senior housing RFP.
Oh, should we bring a couple more
There's-
chairs?
One has been added, we need one more.
Yeah. Mariah gets the hot seat.
Brian, the copy and the packet, like separate copy are the same.
Other than color?
Copy of.
The
Erving.
copy of the RFP in the packet
Oh,
are the
exactly.
same?
The one that you guys got like a week ago?
Yeah,
All
versus the
copy.
one separate.
Nothing's been
Okay.
changed.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I was gonna say, because all the notes date prior to us getting it.
That's correct.
Right. We'll give it just a minute to get set up. Okay, welcome. So we're bringing this back to discuss, and I know you all wanted to have the meeting, so I don't know who wants to lead off. Mariah? Looks like you are appointed for that.
So we're here to show you all the result of many, many meetings, trying to rework the request for proposals for senior housing here on Care Drive. There was previously an RFP put out, I believe, in 2016, and no responses were received. Right when I was hired in the fall of 2019, we had started to discuss the ideas of how to move forward. And then with the pandemic, everything kind of got put on pause. And so over the past 6 months or so, we've been really reworking this. And we feel like we have a finished product now. And so we're hoping to get your input. And right now, the tentative issue date that I put in here was July 19th, but the hope was to be able to launch this sometime this summer with responses coming back in early fall so that by mid-fall, we'd be able to have, hopefully, a developer chosen and be able to start moving forward. The process, if we find a suitable developer, will still take a long time after that. We have to, contract with the developer for the land lease, which is how we're proposing we do this versus a sale. And then they need to come up with their design, apply for funding, which can take multiple years to get funding. And then once they secure funding, go through the whole construction process. So while I think we're all excited to be at this point, it's also still a long road ahead of us. I don't know if any of you have anything you'd like to add to that.
I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. And there was a lot of detail and a lot of information from other sources that we used also as reference points. And I think that it says all that it needs to say.
The Complete Neighborhoods grant that we received, which is not a financial grant, but an in-kind grant to work with Mass Housing Partnership. One of their staff members, Christine, helped us through this process, and it was extremely helpful to have someone on board who has gone through this process before successfully and knows more about procuring specifically housing, since we don't have much experience with that.
And she reviewed it a couple of times, and we met with her remotely, one in person and then remotely another time or two, so.
And we are having a meeting here, correct, shortly coming up with the information. People are supposed to be a site tour and briefing.
Oh yeah, once we launch this, we're asking people to come out for, interested developers to come out for a tour and question and answer session.
And that's optional, correct?
July
Yeah.
20th.
Yeah, I believe it was optional but
yeah, I
encouraged.
Right. But Mariah, my copy says July 5th, but you're thinking of pushing it 2 weeks ahead?
Well, July 5th has passed.
Yes, obviously.
So I
I'm
guess,
asking.
I guess I had pushed it to July 19th. Maybe it was after I had sent
Yeah.
out that copy. I don't know what date yours has, but
Mine says
July
20th.
5th on the cover page and July 20th for the meeting.
So that
So
was
if it's
my-
the 19th, I don't think
Right.
you want the meeting on the 20th.
Right, so that was my question. That's where I
yeah,
was
so
going with
yeah,
it. What are
I
the
think
new
those dates will need to be updated then.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
they will be updated.
Subsequently,
According
in the
to-
body, there was still old dates on there, having turned in at September 20th and
I have it down.
opened on August 3rd. So all those dates
So we
have to
can
be.
push everything out 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the
And
rest
some of
the
these
schedule
aren't 2
should
weeks,
work.
some of them are just wrong. So you have to make sure that you're not just pushing them out 2 weeks.
all of the dates will need to be updated.
We'll confirm and fix all dates.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's where I was going with it, because I
Yeah.
knew that it had passed.
Well, we've
so.
had so many, we've gone through so many drafts and through suggestions from anybody that had previous knowledge about this, like there may be a tweak, and we just, at the final end, after you folks look at it, it will all be updated.
Yeah, Jean went through with a fine tooth comb and found all my typos. So the last little bit after tonight is incorporating any feedback that you all have and updating dates and times.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention that we've updated our aerial. We've taken some drone photos, and those are new as well. We have winter and spring, late spring, early
Yep.
summer. If they don't want to attend, because the site visit's optional, if they didn't want to do that, they could at least look online. And it's got a pretty good overview of the lay of the land and our campus-like feel we're trying to go for.
Yeah, one
the
of the
library
remaining bits that I'm still tracking down is the Senior Housing Committee did ask me to have, we opted not to update. There was 2 studies that were done in 2016 that were like a housing study, and I forget what the other one was called, but basically they were both, I think, a feasibility study and a housing study, or something
Market
like
demand
that.
analysis and.
Yeah.
yeah.
Demand
Yeah.
analysis. We opted not to get those updated. We didn't feel like it was necessary. But they did ask me to, once we've gotten this RFP kind of wrapped up, have a consultant just do kind of a quick reevaluation, just to look at like Erving specifically and how it compares to kind of surrounding towns. I've been having trouble getting a consultant to call me back on that. So that's my kind of remaining task after this RFP goes out, is to still track down a consultant who's willing to kind of update some of those numbers.
Did you have a question?
Well, one of the things, and I'm trying to find the language in the draft, but there was talk and consideration about how the land exchange would take place, whether it would be a sale or a long-term lease, and I didn't know if there's any preference indicated which way would move.
I believe in here we have it as a land lease. If there's, if anyone can find where it says otherwise, we should check that.
Pull that out.
Right, yeah, we were leaning towards a land lease versus a sale. A long-term, like 99-year thing.
Right.
That's on page 23.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And 7.
And I just weigh in that that would be my preferred method.
Land lease.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, same.
So we were aiming for 30 to 60 rental units, and it would be 62 and above, and that a minimum 35 would be affordable or below 60% of the area median income. And one of the things we decided at our last meeting that we should probably be transparent about is we decided not to put local preference in the RFP. That would be a very hard thing to prove, because you have to have a real need for local preference, and we just don't have it. Like,
Right.
you know, so, and we thought too that might narrow the, because it can affect the funding for the developer, and we didn't want to do that. We really, having had no bids last time, we really want this to be successful and to have at least 1, maybe 3 people bid on the project, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't narrow it to that, you know, somebody wouldn't bid on it because it said local preference.
And maybe you need that explained,
Do,
because
no?
do you understand that clearly?
No, I understand.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Do you have a question on it, or?
No.
Okay, all right.
I mean, it is still going to go into
A lottery.
a lottery.
Yeah. And then local preference is only the first round anyways. You don't get local preference after that. It's just the initial round when you're doing the lottery for the housing. Then it's kind of like 2 lists that go on, but when we were talking, Sunderland did it over at Sanderson Place, and
They didn't even fill theirs.
they didn't even fill their local preference slots. So that was another deciding factor why we thought we just didn't want to make it more difficult for the developer to want to bid on the project.
It's also on the town to make that justification. It's not
Yes.
on the developer. So we would have to be the ones to go to the state to argue why it should be with local preference. And that was part of why the Senior Housing Committee asked that I find a consultant to just look at the numbers again, so that when people do ask why they made that decision, we're able to kind of show
It's
the numbers.
justified,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strict criteria
Yeah.
that the town has to meet
Yes.
to get local preference. We can't just decide, oh, we'd like to have it. It's
Yeah.
the state decides, so, yeah.
Makes sense.
All of it has been a lot of detail.
So a little bit
Go
of
ahead. Yeah, I have other
yeah, a little bit of
questions too, but go ahead.
feedback. I mean, there is one more typo, but we can get to that. That's nothing. The attachment A, the evaluation criteria, which I think becomes the
Page-
that's the it starts on page 14. That's the nuts and bolts of what ends up, causing any concern at the end about, fair practices and making sure we were complete with everybody. I just wanted to make sure, like, or is there a way or mechanism to determine the difference when you're talking about developer experience and capacity in the first block, the difference between significant and substantial successful experience versus significant experience? You add in for highly advantageous the two words of substantial, I think it should say substantially successful, but substantial successful, what is that benchmark to be able to move somebody into highly advantageous versus advantageous? Because if it's just too ambiguous, somebody's going to come back and say, well, I believe mine shows substantially successful, and I should have been there, and that would have put me in a different point bracket, and I should have been looked at as a finalist. Therefore, I'm going to challenge your, awarding. So I'm just concerned about that language. And then the second one under affordability, nowhere in the RFP other than the evaluation criteria do we talk about the workforce and/or market rate units at 80% of AMI. That's additional language to move them into a higher bracket, but it's not mentioned anywhere in the RFP.
I thought it was.
If it was, I missed it, and I apologize, but I look back and we talk a lot about the 35% of the units are at or below 60% of the AMI. That's a mandatory, but nowhere about the
So-
80%.
I think that's a good catch, because I think that the intention was to bring that up into the earlier part, not just the rubric, and I think that got misled. The
Okay.
point of that, we spent a lot of time on that section, because what that was trying to convey, you'll see, so unacceptable was less than 35% of the units affordable,
Right.
which is what we're asking the minimum to be.
Right.
Advantageous it's at least 35%. We wanted to have highly advantageous to be more than the bare minimum of 35%.
Right.
But also the point, what the Senior Housing Committee felt was that this entire project, they weren't asking for it to all be affordable. So the intention of that second sentence was to say it should be at least 35% affordable, but there also still needs to be a component of workforce or market rate housing included. So we tried to finagle that language.
So
the
I
best
saw
we
you put a
could.
note on it and said, like, it's this language, and
But I
I'm
think you're
fine
right,
with the
it needs to
language,
be-
but it's not referenced in the RFP, so it
I'll
could
add
be
a note.
overlooked, and somebody could challenge that, saying, it wasn't in the RFP, so how can you give somebody a
Yep.
better rating for having that?
Yep.
We wanted to make sure that we didn't disclude anybody that has a healthy income that wanted to move into senior housing.
Sure.
It's important that we looked at both spectrums of people, on each end, and made sure that they were both included. So
Yeah.
we did discuss it a lot, and I think it was just an oversight to discuss.
Yeah, I'll find the place that fits into.
No, I agree that it would be highly advantageous to have the mix.
Yes.
It's just a matter of putting it in the RFP in the language.
Yep.
As to your first question about substantially successful and what is the difference, maybe we should, I don't know where we would put it, but either flesh that out a little or explain. I mean, when I look at that, I think, okay, you've had significant experience, but some of your projects have failed. Or they didn't quite meet the criteria or that, but that's kind of subjective. So maybe we need to be a little
I
clearer.
can find some other example. I think that these rubrics are always trying to balance that. Like, there's always going to be a level of subjectivity, but you need to have the, like you said, you don't want people to
Yeah. say,
well, you're biased and you put me in the smaller bracket. I think that trying to describe the difference between advantageous and highly advantageous experience is going to be challenging.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if I can go through and find some other rubric examples and see how they worded that and maybe tweak that a little bit.
I feel like we had it in another one recently, so maybe just looking back, I don't know if it was the graded school or the IP
Yeah.
mail.
I
There was
think
one,
it
and
was
I
the
think it
graded
talked about a
school.
number of projects and maybe a size of projects. It had a little more of kind of exactly what we're
Yeah.
saying, a little more substance
Right.
behind
Yeah.
what makes you high to highly.
Less
like-
subjective and more
And maybe the
concrete.
title
Yeah, a
in
little
general.
more.
You know, like you have advantageous, maybe just not use highly advantageous, use another,
Well, we
Those
have to
need to
use,
stay.
No,
you
you
have
Those
to
are the
use that.
standards.
That's,
Yeah,
you have to
that's
use
true.
those,
You do.
yeah.
but the
Yeah.
language
So the
inside
language
of it,
below
we
it.
can.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Would
yes.
you all be okay giving me leeway to just look back at other ones without coming back before you all again? Or do you want me to make these updates and then have another meeting?
Timeline-wise, I'd like to see it be put out, so we're not doing this in late fall or early winter. It's not a deal breaker to put the criteria out like that, but it gives me a little bit of pause that there's no subjectivity in it, or no objectivity in it, it's all subjectivity. So, yeah, I'd be fine if you could wordsmith that a little bit to sort of just pull out an example or a context that could give the evaluation team some, gives them latitude about
More
which way to go,
guidance.
but more guideline
Yeah,
about
okay.
what pushes them to
So-
one versus the other.
So as long as the senior housing committee is comfortable with what Mariah can come up with, you'd be okay with that, so we wouldn't have to.
Personally, I'm one of three, but
Well,
yeah.
I'm asking the group as a whole.
If it appears in the appropriate place within the RFP so that, as Scott mentioned earlier, any potential bidders are aware of it.
And we hope that there's a lot.
Yeah,
We wouldn't have had to worry, because there was none last time.
Do you all want to have another meeting to review any changes that are done tonight before we launch it?
Sure, yeah. We could have a short meeting.
Well, it can be just
Right.
quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Others you had?
If you want all of there was two little,
If you want to just send me any like true typos, just the line, like the page number and where it is, that's fine too.
page 9.
Page
You'll see
9.
it.
Okay, I want to see that.
It's one word. In the
Where
last
are
sec-
we?
The last section of C, instead of saying at least one color rendering or the development, it should say of the development.
Oh, that's one that I had corrected on this copy apparently. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
So you won't find it.
You won't find it then, because it's already been corrected. Got
I
it.
think that's one of the ones that Jean found.
Yeah. Good catch.
Okay.
Before I go, did you have any other questions at the moment?
All those papers,
Yeah.
all those kids over the years.
That's it.
No, I do not at this time.
And I'm
Okay.
also not sure that the bullets line on D, but that's just,
The what was that?
the bullets, it seems like the thought is continuous and it just jumped to the next line. and put
I
a
think
bullet
that's
there.
another one. Yeah.
That you already corrected?
Apparently, you guys did get a slightly earlier copy than the
Okay,
one that I
all right.
have.
So-
But
And that was out of the entire 40
Yeah.
pages or 34 pages, those were the only two notes I
there was
had
a
on it,
few
other than
in this
context.
section, like the A through E section, that somehow when they were copied and pasted,
It
the
put-
bullets,
yeah.
it.
I'm looking at them going, that's not really a
Disappeared
new
or-
idea.
Like all of the sentences became new lines or something, and it
Yeah.
was very mishmash. But I think I caught all of them.
Okay, then I'm good. That's all I have.
Page 5, affordability is probably where you want to add a little more clarity around the 8120, because it talks about what they would do with the market rate side of, but it doesn't get into the detail that you have in the
Yeah.
rubric. Probably where it makes sense to add. In a few places, there's land lease. In almost all the other places, it's ground lease. I don't know if you want to clear that up a
Yeah,
little,
good
or
catch.
just only one reference, one way or the other, rather than kind of a mix of.
Which one makes more sense, ground or land?
It's
There's a
actually
lot of
land lease.
detail around
Okay,
ground
then I would-
everywhere in it, though,
Okay.
so I don't know if there's a reason, but there's probably 10 references to ground and like 2 to land, so.
Well,
dunno.
I think we'll just pick land lease and I'll go
Yes,
through
that's
and
fine.
find and replace.
Yep,
Perfect.
definitely. And the site
There-
tour, it went to the 19th?
No, at your next meeting, we'll talk about dates because I'll have to make these changes and then we'll have to schedule your meeting. So,
Right.
once we do that, we'll update all of the
Right, but
dates.
when will this go out so that the people will come here? I mean, July 20th or 19th is right around the corner.
That's what we have to
We'll
change.
just
decide.
push, we'll
Okay,
push
so we're gonna
everything.
change that,
Yep.
okay.
Page 6, so there's some comments in ours and questions, and I don't know if they're filled in or finished on yours, Mariah, but on page 6 at the bottom, the last sentence there about the special permit, you had a note on there about senior housing zoning amendments if passed. There's no change to that from what it's in here, correct?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was already in there. The developer will be expected to follow the processes outlined of the town of Erving zoning bylaws. And I put that in there just to
As a
cover all the bases,
Okay.
rather than call out a specific section. And that's one of the questions that will probably come up at our info session is if developers have questions about a 40B versus the senior housing zoning.
Right, yes, because we do now have seniors housing zoning, but it's a special permit through the planning board. And it will be clearer what the guidelines are for it. So,
And that's also why I think I changed it to 40B is acceptable rather than preferred. Originally, the language was we would only really be able to feasibly do this with a chapter 40B. And now we have other avenues.
Right.
On 9, there was a comment at the bottom about 5 or 10-year operating budget. Is that,
It
it
actually,
doesn't even look like it belongs there?
no, it's referencing the last bullet on page 8,
yes.
under project
Okay,
financing.
so
It
it's
just got
dropped down a
tagged
page.
with it,
Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, that makes more sense. And it's already in there then.
But the question was, is it 5 or 10?
Well, it says 5 to 10, doesn't it?
A
it says
5-year
5
or
or.
10-year operating budget.
Yep. I mean, are we good leaving it like that? Either is acceptable.
Didn't we talked about that with
Laura?
Christine?
Christine?
I don't remember, but that could have been the meeting that I wasn't there for.
We talked about that. I think we originally had 10-year, and she said to leave it open and, like, to not box yourself in. So basically, am I
So
remembering?
should it be
that?
2, not or? 5 to 10?
Well, it's.
No, I think it's.
Or should it be one or the other?
It's one or the other. They don't
Okay.
do like a 7-year, they do a
Okay.
5, or they do a 10,
Okay.
if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. It was a while ago, but.
Oh, that was actually a comment from Laura Schufelt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, that's what you were talking about. I
Yes.
was like,
Yes, sorry.
where did that come from? Yeah.
The next page.
Yeah. And it doesn't play in anywhere on the rubric either. It's, either one is fine, because there's no.
Right, there's no reference.
criteria. It's just whatever one they prefer as their method
Yeah.
for their operating. Got it.
There's a note on 8, sub 5, about check for 120,
What page are you on? Sorry.
page 10. Section 8, sub 5.
I think a lot of these comments were things to myself and not to you guys. I know
Okay.
you guys are used to
As long as
Brian
they're-
putting comments in there. A lot of these are like
used to
gibberish
comments
to
on
other
PDFs.
people.
Okay, as long as you're good, I just want to make sure they're addressed. That was
Yeah,
really
we
my
had changed that
question.
from 90 days to 120, and I wanted to make sure that that was throughout, and that I didn't have 90 in some places and 120 in others.
Okay.
That was my note to myself.
Okay, all good. And good, otherwise, most of it was small. Just questions about that. Any other questions?
No.
No, not at this time.
So you're looking for, if we're ready to give you a blessing to put it out according to a date structure similar to be slightly adjusted
Yeah,
with the changes recommended tonight.
yes, please.
Sounds like a motion.
If you're looking for a release date, I think Wednesdays are typical for us.
Right.
So the 19th is reasonable, I think, for us to get the ad updated. A lot of the,
But
They want another meeting, though.
we want.
I think we should push it to the 26th.
want to do the 26th?
If you're all, that would be basically 3 weeks from now. So that would give you the opportunity to have another meeting, say, next
It's a
week.
Wednesday.
Well, that would be the issue date, not the date when we would
Right.
meet. We would meet prior to that.
Yeah.
But that would allow Mariah to fix a few little things and then
But it
do
was
the
when they
timeline.
would come
Yeah.
here. Okay.
No,
No,
this
no.
is when it would be issued. We'll talk about the
Just released to the
dates.
public.
Just
Yeah.
Okay,
released to the
fine.
public.
The
I'm
lead
just
time
trying
with
to
the
keep my
state and
calendar.
all the legal ads you have to do, we need at least a week and a half notice to get all of those ads out so it can just be released.
Okay.
And then we can have the site visits.
Okay. I'm just trying to keep my calendar right.
I know.
Don't write it down yet, because it's going
changes
to
all the
change 3
time.
more times.
Right. Setting the release date just allows you to figure out what all your other dates are going
Yeah.
to be after that.
So I think we tentatively plan on the 26th, but I think this is, again, something that we should talk about at your next meeting, is finalizing all of the dates.
Okay.
Are you okay if we tweak it by a week or two?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't change the RFP
No.
content at all, it's just timing. I don't
I don't have
know.
any concerns.
I don't have any concerns with that.
You thought that was a motion? All right, fine. I'll make a motion that we move forward with the Town of Irving request for proposal FY 2024-0726. We'll just call it 26 regardless of when you finalize the release. Care Drive Senior Housing Development as to be amended.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing a lot of
I know.
responses.
I look forward to it. So when we do have the timeline, the one that we want to know is when they're due.
Yes.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I will be putting together is kind of a frequently asked questions for members of the committee, and I'm also happy to send them to you all so that if residents ask you various questions about this process, you'll have the answers, including what the due date is and kind of what the expected timeline is, since oftentimes people think, oh, you're talking about senior housing, this will happen next year, and that's not the case, unfortunately. And then I'm also going to prepare some kind of news and announcements, updates for the website. I'm building out the website page for the senior housing. There's drone photos and things, but I need to add the text once we have kind of all of this information finalized, and then hopefully a Facebook post as well. So I'd like residents to know what's going on.
And terminology
of-
too. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of terminology that isn't explained clearly.
Are you trying to have all that ready at by the same release date? Up
I'm
and
not going to
available?
hold myself to that.
I was going to say, that's a
But yeah.
lot by the release date.
It is a lot.
Well, most of it I already have drafted. I already have the frequently asked questions drafted, but I want to get input from other people so that, because my frequently asked questions might not be the actual frequently asked questions. But I have most of that drafted. It just needs to be, the flyer needs to be changed into a Facebook post, and the formatting just changes.
If we can at least get a little of it up on the website on that by release date, so that when it's out now. that
Yeah, because
some of
everything
it's
else will
there. It
reference
can-
back to the website, so
Right.
having that built out is really the most important thing.
And then we'll just do a blurb for like the September around town type thing, saying it's been released, and these are your options to go look at it for those that might not have Facebook or monitor our website.
Great. Anything else for the Senior Housing Committee?
Nope.
Okay, I'll move to adjourn the joint meeting at 7:17.
Second.
Perfect, thank
All
you.
those in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Back to the board meeting. I think we covered all regular business.
That's it.
I did want to talk meeting dates a little bit. So right now we have July 24th, so 2 weeks, basically every 2 weeks right now,
Yep.
and August 7th. Any concerns with those dates to this point?
Nope.
I
And if
suppose I
you're-
should look too. Huh?
If you're keeping that same thing, August 7th, August 21st, that's fine. I am away the 14th, but right now that's not a meeting date, so.
August 21st works.
Yep.
Okay. And then I believe we have Labor Day on September 4th.
Which would be a normal meeting day.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say we'll just call it to the 21st for now, and then we can figure out whether we need to meet on the 28th, or we can carry it to the 11th, or we do something midweek. We've done a Wednesday before
I
to
was going to
bridge
say,
the gap
rather than
between.
doing, jumping a whole week, moving it out to the 6th or something that same week.
Yeah, exactly.
We've done, that way we stay on the every 2 weeks.
Right, and then we'll just go back to the 18th after that.
Right.
Okay.
I think tentatively that sounds good, but we can obviously finalize it as we're as we're into August and
Yep.
get closer. Any other items anyone has for tonight?
No.
So 7/24, 8/7, 8/21.
And then TBD, but
TBD, but.
tentatively maybe
nines,
the 6th, and
9/6.
then the 18th, back to the
Normal
back to the
Monday.
normal Monday. And if we need to adjust, I'll let everybody know for the summer schedule. But that looks good to me too.
Okay.
Good for you? Okay. With that,
You want to read all those?
I'm going to make a long motion.
Yes, you are.
I'll start out by saying we're going to go into executive session and we will not be returning to regular session. So I'll move we go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, which I do. American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93, Water and Wastewater Unit. And immediately following, executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, which I do. New England Benevolent Police Association, Local 121 Police Unit. And then move to executive session immediately following pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel and contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Town Administrator Brian Smith. And immediately following, move to executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, the Open Meeting Law, to review draft minutes of the Select Board's November 7th, 2022 executive session for possible release or continued non-disclosure. Is there a second?
Second.
Brian, will you call the roll?
Selectman Bassaresh?
Aye.
Selectman Loin?
Aye.
Chairman Smith?
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.